somewhere between 200 billion and half a trillion dollars a year. That's a real industry estimated figure for what shipping actually costs retailers just in the United States. And yet you have almost certainly typed the words free shipping into a search bar, clicked a button that says exactly that, and received a package at your door without ever paying a separate delivery charge. A truck, a driver, fuel, a warehouse, packaging, labor, an entire physical supply chain moved a box from a shelf to your porch, and somehow, according to the checkout page, none of that cost anything at all. So here's the real question this video is actually about. If shipping a package genuinely costs real money every single time, where does that money actually go when the receipt says zero? This isn't a guess or a vague suspicion. It's something retailers themselves have said outright in public earnings calls to actual investors. Executives at major retailers have openly discussed shipping and fulfillment as one of their largest operating expenses, sometimes running into the tens of billions of dollars a year for a single company. Amazon, for instance, has disclosed shipping costs in its own annual filings that run into the tens of billions of dollars, even as free shipping sits at the center of its entire membership pitch. That's not a company quietly hoping nobody notices the cost. That's a company that has fully calculated the cost, reported it to shareholders, and decided to advertise the word free directly next to it anyway. Now, the easy explanation is they just build it into the price of the product. And sure, that's part of it. But that explanation alone doesn't fully hold up. Because if shipping costs were simply folded evenly into every product's price, you'd expect prices to look basically the same whether or not you actually use the shipping. They don't. Retailers routinely offer identical products at identical prices, whether you pick them up in-store yourself or have them shipped to your door, meaning the shipping cost isn't quietly baked into that specific product's price tag at all. If it were, in-store pickup should logically be cheaper. It almost never is. So the cost is going somewhere else entirely, through a completely different mechanism. To understand where, you need to understand what shipping actually costs, and it's more layered than most people assume. There's the literal transportation cost, the truck, the driver, the fuel. There's the last mile cost, which is specifically the final leg of delivery to your individual door, widely recognized in logistics as the single most expensive segment of the entire journey, sometimes accounting for more than half of total shipping costs. Because one truck delivering to 100 spread out houses is dramatically less efficient than one truck delivering 100 boxes to one warehouse. And there's the packaging, the labor to pick and pack your specific order, and the software and infrastructure required to track it the whole way. None of that becomes free just because the checkout page says so. Every single one of those costs still happens in full every time a box leaves a warehouse, which means free shipping was never actually describing the cost. It was only ever describing who pays it and how visibly. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Because retailers have developed an entire toolkit of different ways to make that cost disappear from your specific checkout screen without making it disappear from their books. There isn't just one trick here. There are at least 3 distinct, deliberately engineered mechanisms running underneath that single word free, and most shoppers only ever notice one of them. The first and most common mechanism is the price inflation model, raising the overall price of the product slightly across the board for every single customer, whether they use shipping or not, to cover the average shipping cost across the entire customer base. The second is the minimum order threshold model. You've seen this as free shipping on orders over $35, which is a deliberately calculated number engineered to sit just above what a typical individual shopper was already going to spend, nudging them to add one more item specifically to cross that line. The third, and the most financially significant of the 3, is the membership subscription model, paying one flat annual fee, like Amazon Prime, that pools thousands of individual shipping costs into a single predictable payment collected up front, whether or not you ever actually use it. Which raises the real question this video is actually about. Which of those 3 mechanisms is actually the most profitable for the retailer, and by how much? Here's the mechanism behind the most powerful version of this, named plainly. It's called cost socialization, and the membership model is where it works most aggressively. When a retailer builds shipping into an annual membership fee instead of charging per order, they're not eliminating the cost. They're spreading it unevenly across every single member so that light users massively subsidize heavy users. Someone who orders once a month is effectively paying for shipping capacity they barely touch, while someone who orders every single day is having the vast majority of their actual shipping costs quietly absorbed by everyone else's membership fee. So the reframe here is this: free shipping was never a gift. It's a redistribution system, moving the actual cost away from the specific transaction where you'd notice it, a per-order shipping charge sitting right there on your receipt, and toward a place where you experience it once, abstractly, as a single annual number that starts to feel more like a subscription to convenience than a fee for delivery at all. And once you see it this way, the entire free shipping landscape starts to look less like generosity and more like a series of very deliberate psychological choices about exactly where to place the cost, so it produces the least resistance and the most behavior change. A minimum order threshold doesn't just cover cost. It's specifically engineered to make you spend more per trip. A membership fee doesn't just cover cost, it's specifically engineered to make you order more often, because once you've already paid the annual fee, every individual order suddenly feels completely free, even though it obviously isn't. So here's the number. Multiple retail industry studies have found that free shipping thresholds reliably increase average order value, the amount a customer spends per checkout, sometimes by a range estimated between 30 and 50%, compared to shoppers who see no threshold at all. That's not a small nudge. That's close to half of an entire order's value, generated purely by moving a single line of text on the checkout page and drawing a line at a specific dollar amount. The shipping itself might genuinely be free in that specific transaction, but the extra items someone added just to reach that free shipping line almost always cost the retailer nothing extra to source at that volume, while generating real additional profit. Now, if a checkout threshold moving spending by 30 to 50% sounds like a big number, wait until you see what happens once a customer commits to the membership version of this system, because the psychological shift there isn't just about spending more per order. It's about something much bigger, changing where you shop at all and how often you even think about the decision to buy something. Here's a layer most people miss about subscription-based free shipping specifically. Once someone pays an upfront annual membership fee, behavioral economists have observed something called the sunk cost effect kicking in almost immediately. Because the fee is already paid and non-refundable regardless of how much you order, every single future purchase from that retailer suddenly feels like it's using something you've already bought, rather than spending new money. That shift in framing is enormously powerful. It's the specific reason members of shipping subscription programs have been documented across multiple retail studies to shop meaningfully more often and spend meaningfully more per year than non-members, sometimes by a wide margin. Which means the membership fee was never really priced to just cover shipping costs at all. It was priced closely enough to shipping costs to feel justified and fair to the customer, while actually functioning as the entry ticket into a completely different psychological relationship with that retailer, one where friction has been deliberately removed from every single future purchase decision. For years, in exchange for one single upfront payment the customer barely thinks about again. Here's why this matters beyond just online shopping specifically. This same underlying idea, bundle a recurring cost into a single upfront payment the customer barely thinks about again. All-inclusive resorts bundle food and drinks into one price, so you stop mentally tracking each individual meal or cocktail. Buffets work on the exact same principle. Unlimited data phone plans exist specifically so you stop consciously rationing something that, on a per-unit basis, absolutely still costs the provider real money to deliver. And retailers have gotten remarkably sophisticated about layering multiple versions of this trick simultaneously. It's now common to see a retailer offer free shipping above a dollar threshold for regular customers and unconditional free shipping for members. At the exact same time, meaning the retailer is running the order value nudge and the membership flywheel in parallel on the same website aimed at two different customer segments, extracting a different behavioral response from each one using the identical word free. And this is where the story gets genuinely counterintuitive, because it means free shipping isn't really one strategy at all. It's a label placed over at least three separate, carefully calculated systems, each one designed to solve a different problem for the retailer. Price inflation solves the spread the cost evenly problem. The order threshold solves the increased basket size problem. The membership fee solves the increased purchase frequency and loyalty problem. All three get marketed with the exact same two words, specifically because free is a far more persuasive word to put on a button than any accurate description of what's actually happening underneath it. So here's the full mechanism, all the way through. Shipping a physical package always costs real money. Trucks, drivers, fuel, warehouses, and especially that expensive last mile to your specific door. That cost never actually disappears. It only gets moved, deliberately, to whichever location produces the least resistance and the most beneficial behavior change for the retailer, quietly folded into product prices. Strategically placed behind a spending threshold engineered to grow your basket, or bundled into an annual fee engineered to make you stop noticing individual purchases altogether. Free was never a description of cost. It was always a description of where and how visibly you'd be asked to pay it, which leaves an interesting question worth sitting with. As delivery costs keep climbing, driven by fuel prices, labor costs, and the sheer logistics of same-day and next-day delivery becoming the new baseline expectation, does free shipping eventually become unsustainable as a marketing promise entirely, forcing retailers to make the real cost visible again? Or does the exact same redistribution logic simply get applied more aggressively, with membership fees quietly climbing and order thresholds quietly rising, while the word free stays exactly the same size on the checkout button? This is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to unpack. Not the pleasant surface feeling of getting something for free, but the precise, deliberately engineered redistribution system sitting quietly underneath that one reassuring word. If you want to keep seeing the real mechanics behind the prices, fees, and deals you encounter every day, subscribe, because next up is something that seems like the opposite of a hidden cost: insurance. A product where you pay every single month for years, and the company actively hopes you never use it. The real math behind why insurers profit most from the customers who file the fewest claims is stranger and more calculated than almost anyone expects. Next time you see free shipping on a checkout page, you're not looking at a company being generous. You're looking at a cost that had to go somewhere and a very deliberate decision about exactly how to make sure you stopped noticing where.